call a legend in the sport of track and field. So originally in the event of high jumping, people used a variety of different techniques, and they were all doing certain heights, and the heights were going up. But somebody came along who invented a new technique, which is something that you don't see very often in really any sport. But track and field is a sport with a long, very long history, all the way back to the Olympics in Greece. And the sport of high jumping was forever changed when he won a gold medal at the Olympics. And we're going to hear a little bit about him today, about his story and the story of the Olympic gold medal and his new high jumping technique. Let's have a big round of applause for Dick Fosbury.
Thanks, Rocky. It's really a pleasure for me to be here. I was at track camp at Bowdoin College last week, and I've come to Panther Pond in the past. This year was an option to come see the middle school track camp, and I asked Slovenski's, please let me come, at least for the first day. I have to go home tomorrow, back to Idaho where I live, because I've got another track camp Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So I need to fly home tomorrow, but I wanted to meet all of the campers because I did sports, I sang in the choir, I played dodgeball. Those are not, but I never built a robot. And so there's always something new, and the great thing about coming to camp is you get to meet new people, learn new things in this environment. You know, with this lake, here in the woods, cabins, parents are gone, and what a great time to spend with new friends. So I told the track people today a little bit about my story, but not too much. I told them that I developed this technique that today everybody uses in the high jump, where the jumper runs at the bar, curves like they're going on top of a banana. There's kind of a J curve, and then they turn their back to the bar and go over the bar. And I developed that when I was in school. And I did it as a student, as a member of my track team, and here's what happened. Because when I started jumping at the age of 11 and 12, 5th grade, 6th grade, our teachers would have us learn all the different events, just like the middle school track camp is going to do. You're going to do a ton of different events, find out what you like to do, what you can improve in, and see what's really going to stick with you. And for me, you know, we ran the sprints. I wasn't that fast. We did the long jump. I was okay, but you know, not great. Threw the softball because we couldn't throw the javelin, and finally we got to the high jump. And my teacher taught us this scissors technique where you run at the bar and you kind of hurdle over it and your legs do a scissor kick. Well, that's the oldest style of high jumping in modern track and field. It was used in the first Olympics in Athens in 1896, 100 and almost 20 years ago. And so he taught everybody how to do the belly roll or the western roll, which was the classic style in those days. But this scissor style was really easy for me because I was tall then, still tall today, and it was a simpler technique. What I didn't realize is that I would be limited in how high I could jump. So when I got into high school, my coach saw me that first day. He came over to kind of chew me out because he thought I was goofing around. Because by the time I got to high school, nobody was doing the scissors, everybody's doing the belly roll. And I explained, no, this is what I learned, and I compete with it. And so he said, well, look, Dick, you know, you need to understand you're going to have to change because this technique is not efficient and you won't be able to jump as high. And of course, because he's the coach, I took him at his word. And so he started to teach me it with the belly roll, and we practiced it, and I did it for weeks and weeks. After 6 weeks, I was still falling behind everybody else, not keeping up. And finally, you know, I went back to coach and I asked him, let me go back to my old style. Let me try the scissors and see if I can't get a good mark, because I was just getting beaten so badly, and I was really frustrated. So he said, okay, Dick, well, don't give up trying to learn, but you can go back and do your own technique. So I started jumping. At the next track meet, we traveled on the bus to go to the next meet, and I cleared my personal best at that time was 5 feet 4 inches. So I had jumped that as a 9th grader, but I never jumped any higher, and now I was in the 10th grade in high school, and so they raised the bar to 5'6", and I had never made this. So I thought, you know, somehow I need to lift my hips up and try to knock it off, try not to hit it with my rear end. I've got to lift my rear end up. And so I tried to lean back so my body was not in the way and my hips could come up. And I cleared it. And they raised the bar another 2 inches to 5'8". The other guys started warming up, and they were ready to start jumping, and where I was jumping my personal best just to jump at what they were beginning at. And I tried this again, leaning back further, and it worked again. I cleared 5'8". And that day, I improved half a foot from my personal best, and I even tied for 4th in the meet, going from sitting up over the bar to laying flat on my back. But I was upside down, and I was staring at the sun in the sky in the afternoon, and so I was completely backwards, but I scored a point for the team. So coach was really surprised. The next week we looked at some films to see if there was a model. Is there some technique that I could evolve to? And there just wasn't anything. So I tried this technique again the last meet of the season. It was the conference championship and really good competition, and I cleared the same height, 5'10", and that gave me the confidence. Okay, I'm not a complete loser. I'm not winning yet, but I'm going to stay on the track team. The next year we came back, and by the end of the season, I had started to lead with my shoulder and rotate, and I was going over at an angle instead of parallel to the bar. And that gave me the chance to finally, by the end of the year, I was jumping up to 6'2" or 6'3", and coming really close to the school record. My senior year, I finally did the final step, turning my back to the bar so that I could arch over the bar, be really efficient, and by the end of the season, I finished 2nd in states, and I was really proud of that. And of course, today, we learned that Katniss was a high school champion in high school, and I mean, she's accomplished so much. So all of us can achieve certain levels at certain years in our life, but we never give up. We never quit. And so after high school, I went on to Oregon State University to study engineering. And I met my new track coach, who had never seen me jump, and when he did see me jump, thought this technique is crazy, because he's turning his back to the bar. He's the only guy that's doing this. It just doesn't make sense. So he worked out a plan where he would try to teach me the standard technique with the roll, and eventually the plan was that I would get better with his coaching, and get better than what I was doing going over backwards. Well, that was a good plan, except that by my sophomore year, in our first meet of the season, I broke the school record. I improved another 3 inches, which was a real breakthrough. Broke the school record, and at the end of that meet, he said, "Okay, Dick, I've seen enough. I'm going to start filming you so I can learn what you're doing, and I'll train you to be a better athlete, and we'll see how good you can become." Well, that was 1967. The next year was the Olympic year. And a lot of kids have this dream about going to the Olympics or representing your country. But for me, I had never dreamed that I would ever be good enough to make the Olympic team. But my coach gave me a really good training program. I got serious and started to train and show up every day for practice, do all the drills, and I became a better athlete and a better high jumper. And gradually, he gave me some strength drills to help me be stronger as an athlete, and that helped me the next year, 1968, to eventually qualify for the Olympic Games and make the Olympic team. So 1968, the Olympic Games were in Mexico City, which is really high altitude, 7,250 feet in height. So it's higher than some mountains. You know, it's even in Maine. And in Mexico City at high altitude, a lot of doctors were concerned at that the high altitude that there would be some risk to the endurance athletes. So the Olympic Committee developed a high altitude training camp, and we trained together and competed against each other for 10 weeks in the summer. And then in those final Olympic trials to make the team, everybody was trying so hard. It was such hard competition that we really developed the best team the United States had ever seen. And so that year, 1968, that was the first year a woman or man ever won a gold medal 2 Olympics in a row in the Olympic sprints in the 100 meters. That woman was Wyoming Attias. She did what no man could ever do. The first year, men ran faster than 10 seconds in the 100, faster than 20 seconds in the 200. We set records. Some records are still standing today. My teammate, Bob Beeman, jumped 29 feet in the long jump. The world record had been 27.4, and he passed that by almost 2 feet. It's still the Olympic Games record. So the 1968 will be remembered for a lot of reasons. It was a very important time in our country. We had a war in Vietnam. A lot of students were being drafted, having to go into service, and it was a very challenging time. And for me, because sport was amateur, I couldn't make a living high jumping. I really wanted to be an engineer. And so I went back to school, got my engineering degree, and I took a break from jumping in order to get my degree, but I became a professional engineer and practiced engineering my whole life. I still continued because I introduced this new technique of jumping backwards. I've always done clinics and worked at camps and taught kids, and I love doing that because the Olympic values that I learned, and last month on June 23rd, that was International Olympic Day. So the Olympic values that I learned about fair play and sportsmanship, that it's more important that you compete fairly. Sometimes you even help the person that you're competing against. If they trip and fall, help them get back up, encourage them to continue and do the best they can. But play fair and play by the rules. Because sport is a fantastic opportunity. People are still coming up with new techniques, new style. Who knows? One of you might show the rest of us how to do what you love to do in a different way, and teach us how to do the best that we can become. But the Olympic Games are also about peace in the world, and ideally, if we could stop all wars during the Olympic Games, that would be introduce peace in the world for everyone. Coming here to camp is a healthy way for you to learn to exercise, learn to practice new things, how to create things, how to make things, how to sing things, how to act, all of that. And that's why I love to come to camp, and I want to thank all of you for coming to this camp, because you've made the right decision. You guys are winners, and you're on your way to becoming a more healthy person by doing Slovenski Camps. So thank you so much for everyone, and you guys have a great camp. Stay healthy and be fit. Thank you.